Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host Omar Khalid. But today is the 3rd of November 2022, and before we begin our show, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to condemn from all of Pakistan television and all of Pakistan's side the incident that happened on our former Prime Minister and leader of the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, Mr. Imran Khan, who was injured during a long march in Wazirabad. The government has strongly condemned this. All the leaders have strongly condemned it. I'd like to refer to what Shehbaz Sharif, our Prime Minister, said. He said he condemns the incident of firing on PTI Chairman Imran Khan in the strongest words and has directed Interior Minister for an immediate report on this incident. He also said that he prays for the recovery and the health of the PTI Chairman and other injured people. The federal government will extend all support necessary to the Punjab government for the security and investigation. Violence should have no place in our country's politics. Indeed, ladies and gentlemen, violence does not have a place in our politics, and it should not have one place. We should all wait patiently, I feel, for the reports to come out from the Punjab government, what they have to say. This was also stated by Maryam Aurangzeb Sahiba, Minister for Information, who also talked to the media very recently, in fact, a couple of minutes back. And the crux of the matter is that we need to wait for the investigation before making our own inferences. Let the police decide, let the administration of the Punjab government decide, and with concrete evidence as to what really happened in the incident, who was behind it, before pointing any fingers. The country needs less of polarization that it already is engulfed in. We need to move collectively together under the circumstances that Pakistan has seen after the floods, and of course, in order for Pakistan to continue to work towards a more stable environment, whether it be economically or otherwise. We highly condemn what has happened on the former Prime Minister Imran Khan and all the others who've also been injured, Senator Faisal Javed Saab, as well as other people from the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf. And of course, I think a speedy investigation of this incident is very important, and we need to come to the results of what really happened. And as Maryam Aurangzeb Saab also said, the whole area needs to be cordoned off so that a proper forensic investigation could be held. We deplore it. And of course, we hope for an early recovery and a speedy and a healthy recovery for Mr. Imran Khan. Let's come now to our show today. Our first segment, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif's visit to the People's Republic of China. His official visit was extremely lucrative in terms of the discussions that were held with Xi Jinping, the President of the People's Republic of China, as well as Li Keqiang, the Prime Minister of China, and other important leaders from China. Economy was the hallmark of the discussions between both the countries, and of course a lot of important decisions were made during that. We will be coming towards that and the whole gamut of relationship that has further been solidified and strengthened by the visit of Shehbaz Sharif Saab and his entourage of ministers to the People's Republic of China. They are now back. They returned yesterday. This is going to be our first segment. Our second segment, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the Central Bank of Pakistan and China, both the central banks that have signed a memorandum of cooperation for Yuan clearing in Pakistan. What does it mean exactly to be trading in the Chinese currency, that is Yuan, with China, and what kind of impact is it going to have on Pakistan's economy? We will be discussing that in detail in our second segment. Let's come to our first segment, and that concerns Pakistan-China relationship in the whole context of the visit of the Pakistan's Premier Shehbaz Sharif and his entourage of ministers, including the Foreign Minister of Pakistan, Maryam Aurangzeb Sahiba, and many other ministers who were there as well, and assistants as well. More on that, but after this report.
China-Pakistan eternal friendship manifests, ideal case of interstate relations as the two nations have stood firmly side by side in realizing their shared vision of peace, stability, development and prosperity. For Pakistan, relations with China form the cornerstone of our foreign policy, and Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has arrived in Pakistan after completing his promising two-day official visit to China. China has always placed Pakistan as a priority in its neighborhood diplomacy, and during meeting with Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, President Xi Jinping has assured that China will continue to support Pakistan to help stabilize its economy. Chinese President Xi Jinping emphasized to make full use of Joint Cooperation Committee of CPEC, advanced CPEC with greater efficiency, accelerate construction of auxiliary infrastructure for Ghauri port, create conditions for early implementation of upgradation of ML1 and Karachi circular railway project to unleash its role in driving interconnected development in the region. During meeting between Prime Minister Shehbaz and Chinese Premier Li Keqiang, both sides agreed to speed up efforts to build a closer China-Pakistan community with a shared future in the new era and inject new impetus into their all-weather strategic cooperative partnership. The central banks of Pakistan and China signed a memorandum of cooperation on Yuan, clearing in Pakistan, and this arrangement could pave the way for an alternative payment option for Pakistan. Facing a highly uncertain world, Sino-Pak Axis stand on the right side of history, keeping up their strong cooperation in multilateral mechanisms and working closely on major international and regional issues.
Barrister Safi Ghauri, analyst, joins us online. Safi, thank you very much to have joined us. Safi, now that the Premier is back from the People's Republic of China and the visit seems to have a lot of importance as per the statements that have emanated from China and from Pakistan as well, how would you regard, if I were to ask you in a nutshell, what would be your take on the visit of the Premier to China?
It was a very welcome visit, Omar. Thank you for having me on the show. And honestly, this is one of the best visits Pakistan has had in the last maybe 5-6 years, if not more. It's fair to say that because we have seen in the last couple of years the relationship never really stalled, but the projects were stalled for a little while. And a lot of projects that China is now pumping money into, a lot of projects that that we have now both mutually agreed will be restarted, were projects that were all set for completion already, but due to a variety of myriad political reasons, perhaps it could not be. But the fact that now there's a renewed re-emphasis on completing the existing CPEC projects, that's one thing. But I think another thing that the report, for instance, just now did not mention is the fact that CPEC is just the one project that both the countries have agreed to renew with a renewed vigor. But there are 3 more corridors that China and Pakistan have agreed upon under the 11th CPEC Joint Coordination Committee. And these 3 corridors are the Green Corridor, the Digital Corridor, and the Health Corridor. All of them are extremely important. The Green Corridor deals with food security, with ecotourism, with just general environmental friendliness and reducing the carbon footprints of both the countries. And the Health Corridor deals with controlling infectious diseases that may travel across the borders. We know that China has been particularly careful about COVID. And the one that I like the most is the Digital Corridor. Something that we have seen, at least in the last Communist Party re-election, is that China has a new vision for being the digital leader of the world, and it's building the world's biggest blockchain backbone. So if Pakistan could be given access to that kind of a backbone as one of the first countries, I think there's nothing that can stop us from becoming a massive IT country and leading to huge IT exports. And
let's talk of digital economy then, which is your forte, Safi, the point that you like the most. What kind of benefits can Pakistan ascertain from China in the digital economic field?
Right. So that's precisely what I was saying. It's so interesting. China, when we talk about the re-elections and the new Politburo of the People Standing Committee Politburo that has been set up, one of the determining factors that were chosen under these new re-elections was the kind of access and vision of technology that these new people have. So, for instance, the new Chinese Prime Minister is well versed with blockchain technology, Web3 technology. So, and these people are now coming up with a new vision of China, that sets China as the center of the semiconductor manufacturing and also of the software that comes with it. We have already seen for instance, recently, Elon Musk's takeover of Twitter, and Elon Musk's takeover of the $44 billion takeover of Twitter was financed by a Chinese company called Binance. So it's things like these that are happening that are increasing China's digital footprint all over the world, and the fact that they are now already leapfrogging on technology, and they're giving Pakistan that access to technology, and if Pakistan were to make use of it, I say this with responsibility, because so far there has been talk of building a digital corridor. The procedure has not been set up. But I have full faith that if Pakistan goes into it with honesty and with an intent to learn from China and to take the good practices that China has developed and implement them in Pakistan, I think Pakistan is going to skyrocket globally, just in a way, in the same manner perhaps that India has, by utilizing American technology.
All right, you talked about Elon Musk, about Twitter, which brings me to the United States of America, the tensions that exist between both the countries. How do you feel that Pakistan is going to move forward as far as its relationship with China, keeping in mind its status as far as maintaining a good relationship with the United States of America is also concerned? And how do you feel these tensions between China and the US could have an impact on the geostrategic balance or the imbalance in the region?
Very interesting. So I think if I were to view this as an impartial observer, we've seen the US increasing its pressure on China via the Quad. And the Quad is targeting very specific things, very specific Chinese interests. Now, when Shehbaz Sharif visited Mr. Xi Jinping and Mr. Li Qiang, several political matters were also discussed. It was not all economics. It wasn't all about the ML1 railway and the Vadar and the Karachi Circular Railway. So there was a give and take on both sides, and this give and take is what's particularly interesting. So China, on the one hand, expanded the Belt and Road Initiative to Afghanistan, giving Pakistan more autonomy over the region, catering once again to Pakistan's deep state interests, and also discussed Kashmir at length and Pakistan's role in Kashmir, and China reaffirmed Pakistan's sovereignty. So that's something that they gave to Pakistan, but Pakistan in return reiterated its support for China's stance on Taiwan, on the island chains of the South China Sea, on Hong Kong, and on Tibet and on Xinjiang. So the fact that both countries have now, in essence, reiterated and re-emphasized each other's support for the very cornerstones of their foreign policy. This is not something that is just lip service. These are the cornerstones of each nation's foreign policy. For us, Afghanistan and Kashmir are perhaps the most important aspects of our foreign policy. For China, it's Taiwan, South China Sea, Hong Kong, Tibet, and Xinjiang. Xinjiang at the moment because of media ruckus, but other than that, these are the main problems that Chinese public experiences. And so the fact that we have both reiterated each other's support means that China has made considerable strides in trying to break the hold of the Quad over it by re-emphasizing its own foreign policy vision of the string of pearls. And even more interesting is the fact that both the countries have made 2023 the year of bilateral tourism. In 2023, the Beijing Museum is going to have the Gandhara exhibition year-long to showcase Pakistani culture. In the same vein, Pakistan has been asked to open up Pakistani tourist sites to Chinese people. The next show is already about how we're going to have the RMB as a trading currency. And whereas Pakistan is and historically has been an ally of the US, it's very clear by the kind of strides that we're seeing in Pakistan-China relationship now that Pakistan is, on the whole, of course, it's aligned with its own interests, but also it's looking to be the friend that China would have wanted in the region, and it's proving its brotherly relationship with China in a very solid manner.
All right, you talked about Afghanistan, Safi, during the course of the discussions between the Pakistani and the Chinese leadership. Afghanistan and Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, one of the regional topics that were discussed. Now, Afghanistan brings to mind security threats to Pakistan. A stable and secure Pakistan is, of course, in China's interests, strategic as well as regional. Do you feel both the leaders did come up with some kind of a joint course of action to combat resurging militancy in Pakistan?
Of course, the joint communiques spoke about combating terrorism. Amongst the many things that were discussed, there was a re-emphasis on combating terrorism, on increasing the law enforcement capacities of Pakistan, on giving Pakistan more intelligence on the kind that China has. And in fact, I think we saw an example today. A terrorist was trying to attack a Chinese dentist in Hyderabad, and before anything could happen, an excellent law enforcement operation took place, and that terrorist plot was foiled. So it's very interesting the timing of this terrorist plot, because Shehbaz Sharif is in China right now, and a Chinese doctor who has been serving the people of Pakistan for a very long time was being targeted, and it's things like these that create fear amongst the Chinese populations living in Pakistan at the moment. But the fact that Pakistanis were very active and foiled it also shows that any terrorist organization that has perhaps been funded from abroad or is doing so of its own accord here in Pakistan is going to be dealt with an iron hand.
But
And
Safi, you know, the Prime
that's
Minister is
something
back. The Prime Minister is back to Pakistan after his visit to China.
Yeah.
You were mentioning that he was still in China. He's in. Anyways, the joint statement did not mention that China would consider Pakistan's request for restructuring of the 6.3 billion US dollars debt. Do you feel China is going to consider the request, considering Pakistan's, of course, situation economically because of the floods, especially?
Yes, I think so. For the flood, they're already giving 500 million RMB to Pakistan, but President Xi has stated and reassured Pakistan that they are going to stand with Pakistan to ensure that Pakistan does not suffer from any economic collapse. And that in turn basically means some sort of an economic bailout, perhaps not in the form of debt restructuring, perhaps in some other manner, but we are yet to see what that is. And I do believe that would be the case, and for a very important reason. Once again, because whereas both countries have re-emphasized their support for each other, there is also a Western propaganda narrative that is built against China, which states that something along the lines that China gives loans to weak countries, knowing that those countries would default, and those are predatory loans. And once countries cannot repay those loans, then they take over shipping ports and whatnot. Now we have seen that this is not the case anywhere in the world. Nowhere in the world is it a proven fact. But if Pakistan were to default, because Pakistan has served as China's closest ally, that would impact China's international image in a negative manner, because countries would think that a country closely aligned with China ended up defaulting, and so that's something once again that would go against China. So I feel it serves Chinese interest to save Pakistan from any economic turmoil, at least for the time being.
Now, after the visit of Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif to the People's Republic of China, what kind of tangible economic guarantees do you feel Pakistan has garnered from the People's Republic of China?
So we've obviously seen the increase in the cost of the railway, the ML1 railway that China is spending. We've seen, for instance, that earlier they were going to spend a cost of $6.6 billion. Now it's been up to $10 billion. That's a considerable, almost twice an increase. We have also seen an increase in the cost that Chinese are willing to pay for the Karachi Circular Railway, which is going to really relieve this congested city of so many of its problems. We've also seen an increase in the cost that China is willing to pay for the Gwadar deep port. And also Shehbaz Sharif has made a personal request for Chinese firms to come into Pakistan and invest in solar companies. So I presume that we would obviously see those. I have personally experienced it firsthand. The fact that the Chinese money that's going to flow into the railway, I've personally experienced that money is obviously coming, because very close to my house there were some people who had left Pakistan and are now returning because they know that the railway projects are restarting. So that's sort of some
all right.
how I
China has always had a deep strategic relationship and of course a very sound relationship with Pakistan in different arenas, which includes the economy as well. You talked about green economy. That was the first corridor that you talked about. China is also transforming itself into a green country, and with a huge population like which China has, do you feel Pakistan can benefit from the experiences that China is making in the strides towards a green economy?
So it's such a fantastic thing. One of the key achievements of the Communist Party of China this time around, which were highlighted in the 20th Party Congress, were that they have rid China not only of poverty but also of pollution. And that's something that you can see for yourself right now. We don't even need to look at Chinese stats. We can look at international agreed upon stats to see how China has reduced its pollution by up to 40%. the emissions that were responsible. And so when China says that Pakistan is a victim of climate change caused by the West, it's actually correct, because China has course corrected itself. One way to see this is to just take out the newspapers and see how the air quality of Beijing and Shanghai has changed over the last 10 years. Whereas 10 years ago, it was very, very thick polluted air, the same sort that we see in Lahore right now. Today, it's on par with any of the best cities of the world, cities like Melbourne, even coastal cities, because such strong carbon capture measures have been imposed that the people of these cities are breathing pure fresh air every day. And it's this kind of thinking that we need in Pakistan as well. So one aspect is, of course, when you talk about the green corridor, there's the one aspect is the ecological aspect, which China has been focusing on. It has saved pandas from the edge of extinction. It has also saved countless other species from certain death that they were heading towards. The South China Sea has become one of the biggest fishing grounds after being heavily depleted of the marine life that it once had. So we've seen strides being made on that end, and we can do the same now with Chinese help in Arabian Sea that we have. We can do the same in the rivers that
Safi,
we
you
have.
know, that and so much more. China has been a true friend to Pakistan, not now, not in the recent past, but in the last few decades. China has always supported Pakistan for the good and the bad, in the testing times as well as in the jubilant times. And with this visit of Premier Shehbaz Sharif, I'm sure that this is going to open up many new avenues as far as this tangible, concrete, stable, iron brotherly relationship is concerned. Thank you very much, Safiullah Ghauri, to have joined us, to have talked to us about this visit of Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and his entourage to the People's Republic of China. A very successful visit indeed. Our second segment, ladies and gentlemen, is more tilted towards the economy. Now, the central banks of Pakistan and China have signed a memorandum of understanding, memorandum of cooperation rather, in Yuan clearing in Pakistan. What does Yuan clearing mean? What kind of effects is it going to have as far as Pakistan's economy is concerned? We've been joined by Dr. Khaqan Najeeb, former advisor, Ministry of Finance. Thank you very much, Dr. Khaqan. Always a pleasure. Of course, always a pleasure to have you, Dr. Khaqan, in our show. Dr. Khaqan, this one, of course, is a topic that is very near to your heart, and that is economy. Yuan clearing. Explain us this concept and how can Pakistan benefit from it economically?
So let me, Omar, start with the fact that the Chinese visit is an extremely important visit for us. The reason I say that is that there are a number of things that we want to do with China. China, as a bilateral partner, is one of the most important bilateral partners who exist, starting with the Belt and Road Initiative, starting with the $23 billion of monies that Pakistan owes to China, starting with the fact that they need to help us build the ML1, which is the lifeline for Pakistan Railway, starting with the fact that now we are looking towards them for agriculture help. So what I'm trying to put forward is that this spans an array of economic activities at a time when Pakistan faces a balance of payments challenge. Now, the balance of payments challenge brings us closer to the fact that why is it important for us to be able to trade in yuan? The balance of payments challenge is a challenge which puts pressure on the forex reserves as we make foreign payments, or as we pay for the debts, or as we pay for the current account deficit. We have to accumulate around $32 billion or north of that in FY23. Let's say a big chunk of our trade, which exists with China, goes away, and the pressure goes away from the dollar-denominated payments that we have to make to the yuan that we are now thinking of doing. That means that we need less dollars. That also means that our people, our businesses, our enterprises will find it easier to open letter of credits with China. So there is an array of activity that can benefit as we engage with China on the second round of CPEC, which I always say is as important, if not more, than the first round. The first round set up our infrastructure. And the first round set up our energy needs that we were short on. The second round will use that infrastructure and that 11,000 megawatts of energy that we have set up to set up industrialization. Industrialization in Pakistan as a percentage of the whole economy, which is the GDP of the country, has fallen, Umar, from being 19-20% to only 13%, which means there has been actually deindustrialization. All our efforts now in the next 3 to 5 years to pull the country out of where the country has come to have to focus on industrialization. Financial support, financial ease, credit availability, opening of LCs, payments abroad are all part of this financial easing to set up industrialization in the country. To export, and export. There is no other way Pakistan can meet its balance of payments challenge on a sustainable basis besides exporting. In the short run, we can, contain imports, but that is not the right way to go. The right way to go always will be to enhance our exports. So trading in with China in Yuan enhances our capacity to do business with another partner, which is one of the most important trading partners Pakistan has. So that is the overall perspective that I would put it.
Does it put less impact on other foreign currencies? The huge, there is a lot of impact as far as maybe the US dollar is concerned or the euro is concerned. Do you feel that is going to somehow balance out the current issue that pertains to the rupee versus the US dollar, or the rupee versus the euro, or the rupee versus the British pound?
So it will take time for all this to happen. It won't happen immediately. We have been trying to do this for some time, and now we have formalized between the State Bank of Pakistan and the People's Bank of China, which is their state bank, this initiative, this MOU. So the banks, it will filter through the commercial banks, both on the Pakistan side and the other side in China. And once it does, then we can hope that the pressure that we have on other currencies, the strengthening of the rupee would happen. But Umar, having said that, Pakistan still, and I've used this word and I've written on this a lot, is in a dollar liquidity crunch. What that means is that it is perpetual in Pakistan because we import more, we export less, and the remittances try to balance out, but we are still in a gap, which is, like the current account deficit. You heard this in 2018, you heard this in 2022, $17.5 billion in current account. So the essence of all this is to make the country more productive. Always remember that we talk, when we talk about current account and when we talk about balance of payments and the pressure on the rupee and the rupee, these are all ramifications of the productive capacity of the country. In the end, we want to produce more, we want to produce efficiently, we want to produce something we can sell to the world, we want to enhance our manufacturing, we want to not only send textile stuff, but we want to sell value-added stuff. We want to develop an ICT industry. And most importantly, Omar, something that I am very keen that Pakistan should be doing with China, which doesn't get highlighted, is the agriculture sector. Over the last few years, JCC, the Joint Committee with China, has added agriculture as one of the subjects that need to be looked at.
And that's a very important subject because Pakistan is an agriculture-based economy.
Umar, absolutely. And what you have to see is that being an agriculture-based economy, was the similar case in China. People think that Chinese progress actually came from manufacturing. If we read Chinese economic history, we will also learn that China also became a superpower in agriculture productivity. And why have I used the word super productivity or superpower? These are the two things that I put to you. China is one of the biggest rice producers in the world, but China's capacity to produce has gone up because its yields have gone up. So again, let us talk about this. And here is where I think the real meat for Pakistan has occurred. What is that? Pakistan, our textiles are about $19.5 billion in exports last year, right? The raw material, of course, starts with cotton and, ends up whether you are wearing a cotton t-shirt or a cotton shirt. We were producing 14 million bales of cotton a few years ago. Last year, we came down to 8.5. This year, due to floods, we are, barely 6.5 million bales. Now, floods impact has brought down about 1.5 million bales especially in the Sindh area, but our productivity had gone down even prior to floods. Now, let me put to you, and viewers will be surprised, and I want to emphasize that through media and academic discussions and policymakers' interactions, Pakistan right now is at 1.7 tons per hectare yield in cotton. China is at over 9 tons per hectare of produce as far as cotton is concerned. So can we learn from China how they went from a yield of where Pakistan is today to almost 8 times of, many times of what could be done? I'm sure we could. Similarly, China can also become a market for our agri-produce, for our blue economy, which is what we can do in future. So the connectivity with China, starting from trading in our own currencies, would improve, and that's the connectivity from manufacturing to agriculture that Pakistan is looking for. Now the role of the business community would become essential here to take all this forward.
Dr. Khaqan, now taking this forward, don't you feel that now the emphasis should be on training our youth, that is in majority, in all the avenues that is required by China, so that the imports that they need should be manufactured in Pakistan and then exported to China or other countries? And now that we have this agreement that has been a memorandum of cooperation that has been signed in Yuan clearing, it would pave the way for a more an easier, export of material to China, and might strengthen our exports. But don't you feel the first order of business should be now making the avenues clear for where we need to train our youth or our populace is concerned, so that the major items to export should be as per the needs of different countries, including China?
So, Omar, you have rightly asked and thought about this. The question now is that what we need to do on our end to progress forward. It is not good that ML1 has been in the offing for many, many years, and a project which started with somewhere $8.5 billion has gone to more than $11 billion. And there has been, as you delay projects, the costs go up.
Increases, of course.
Increases. So there are many things we have to do. First, I think the follow-ups of the visits of the leaders, the departments doing their work, the executive, making sure that projects go through, that will become essential if we have to really now move into the second phase. The regulations becoming easier, the investment climate, especially using Board of Investment, also the Planning Commission, which handles, CPEC projects, and also maybe, privatization, where we can start thinking of, selling some of these white elephants in the name of SOEs that we've maintained. So that is the first phase. But the onus of all this, and you started with youth, and I'll come to this, is on us. The opportunities have been identified. The way forward is in front of us. The onus of the hard work is on the nations who want to progress and connect to the world. Pakistan has to connect to the world to progress. That, what you said, is the essence of moving forward. In trade and not aid, you need to connect. Aid is pretty simple. You go, you find monies from the multilaterals, the bilaterals, and you do. But when you go to find investment, when you go to find trade, when you go to find opportunities, you have to work hard. So the first hard work must come from us, where whatever has been decided, whether it's ML1, whether that's shifting of industry to our special economic zones, whether that's ICT shifting to our country, whether that's agriculture support, whatever has been decided should be earmarked with a timetable and followed through over the next 3 years. I think that is the first mandate that the government should follow through. And, whether there is political certainty, whether there is change of guards, with China, we must stick to this plan because we have already invested so much. We have taken a high amount of debt, which is a burden on us until we support that with the kind of exports that get us dollars and yuans.
All right, now, Dr. Khaqan, you talk about the exports that, they could build our economy, could, help us pay back the huge debt that Pakistan is currently encountering. What should be the SOPs to move forward now that the road is clear as far as China-Pakistan economic relationship is concerned? And secondly, of course, the paying back of all the huge debt that Pakistan is currently facing. What should be the SOPs? If you were to make the SOPs, let's have this fictional scenario. If you were to make the SOPs, what would you make as the SOPs in order to bring Pakistan out of this current economic issues that it is, of course, engulfed in, and how to also build on its economy, especially its exports, with countries such as China?
So we remain in the realm of China and talk about this. Of course, there are many other things that we can do. So with China, of course, if you double your 1,163 kilometers of rail network, you will start carrying your freight on railway instead of carrying it on the motorways in Pakistan. That would improve the cost of transportation, the efficiency of transportation, and that would also mean that you're localizing, using local fuels to do this. So that's the first thing I would do. Number two, you want to make sure that whatever industry could shift, much of it has shifted to Vietnam. So one would check how much could be shifted to the special economic zones, and we should do that work. There is ICT and there is both other industry, textile and maybe, manufacturing of some electronics that could be shifted. Then the cooperation in agriculture, and all these projects have to be fast-tracked. When I say fast-tracked, having worked for over a decade with the government of Pakistan and similarly abroad in countries like Australia, even they have a foreign investment review board. Let me give you an example. People think things work very well in the Western countries or in the more developed countries. They even have, a foreign investment review board. And the idea is to fast track foreign investment. The idea is to, as we do bypass surgery, there is a system in which maybe it will take a longer time. So bypass that system. Board of Investment was created. I would revamp Board of Investment. I would make it one of the smartest and an elite unit that would take care of investments, as Qatar has done. If we talk about more developing world, they have a special law. So that's the thing I would do. But this is all on part of the government, and that's the theory here is that until follow-ups are done by the executive, things will not move. And we have seen both in ML1, and we have seen also in the Gwadar project of refinery. I was on the table in 2019 February when it was discussed. I was told yesterday by one of the foreign secretaries that, it had been going on even prior to that. And we still, haven't been able to, grab that project or complete the pre-feasibility, the feasibility, the financing. So all these things, you need a professional setup to handle this. That's why these special purpose vehicles like investment and privatization were created, and that is what we need to do. But the other thing that you mentioned has become very important. People-to-people contact, business-to-business contact, connecting our small and medium enterprises with the global value chains. Why is that important? Because we need to upgrade, upscale, up the technology of our industry so it knows what is going on in the world. I'll just give you an example. Vietnam, to one company, which is Samsung, exports parts of the phones that you use, of the other Samsung manufactured products that we use, about more than $72 billion. So one wants to connect our industry also, our fan industry, for example, in Gujranwala, our electronic industry, and up the ante from just selling locally. We have become an inward-looking manufacturing nation. Even our bigwigs, sell 50% of their produce in Pakistan. It used to be different. We used to sell more than 60% abroad and the rest. So we have become an inward. That is where people-to-people contact. And here the role of the chambers has become very important. Our chambers can't be just voices for subsidies. They have to go beyond that, I think.
So, a lot of mechanisms need to be made transparent, need to be made available to the public, and the whole system of doing business, you talk of ease of business, needs to be really put out there so that Pakistan can become economically strong. Pakistan needs that. Pakistan needs a strong economy, a strong financial system, and a strong economic relationship with countries such as China. And only a simpler mechanism could pave the way for that. Thank you very much, Dr. Khaqan, to have joined us, to have talked to us about the different avenues or corridors as far as Pakistan-China trade relationship is concerned, and of course the importance of this memorandum of cooperation on Yuan clearing, on how that could pave the way also not only for a stronger and robust relationship between Pakistan and China, but also Pakistan coming out as far as its debt crisis is concerned. So, of course, let's hope for the best, Dr. Khaqan, and hope that the people have learned and understood how to move Pakistan forward economically. Thank you very much, sir, to have joined us. It was a pleasure talking to you about economy, as it always is. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with new story segments that pertain to us, you and Pakistan. As I always said in my show, kindly help those in need because of the floods. There are more than 33 million people, children, women, who are in dire need of whatever you can do to help them. So help them in whichever capacity you can. But do we need an economically stronger Pakistan? We need a stronger nation, and only us with our collective and individual efforts can make that happen, along with the government and our armed forces. Allah Hafiz.